This is the IBJ podcast for the week of August 26th, 2019. I'm Mason King. Don Brown, or technically we should say Dr. Don Brown, is among the most successful serial entrepreneurs in modern Indianapolis history. Since 1983, he has founded, run, and sold 3 technology companies. 2 of them, Software Artistry and Interactive Intelligence Group, went public before their acquisitions. The former sold for $200 million to IBM in 1997, and the latter sold in 2016 for $1.4 billion to Genesys, which makes software for call and contact centers. Now, Brown has what we professional spectators would call a very big brain. He has 4 academic degrees in an array of topics that initially seems kind of puzzling. He's widely known for his prescience and his ability to shift gears quickly to take advantage of technological change, and we think of him first and foremost as a computer and software technologist. But his new venture, LifeOmic, picks up a major thread that we haven't always been able to see: medical research. Dr. Brown is indeed a medical doctor. He is a graduate of IU School of Medicine from 1985. And in 2017, he received a master's degree in biotechnology from Johns Hopkins University. LifeOmic stores and analyzes patient data to help predict medical risks and identify the best treatments. And it appears to represent the convergence of Brown's 2 principal preoccupations over the last 40 years. Dr. Brown talked with us about how his dual interests have intertwined. He also explains how on earth he was able to earn advanced degrees while running some of the city's most important tech companies and raising 8 children. He also has a pilot's license, so we're not even going to get into that. But here's our conversation. Don, thank you so much for participating in our podcast today.
My pleasure.
Right. As we noted, I think, before the interview, I wanted to take a look at the breadth of your career. And I saw 2 consistent themes. I saw information technology, is that probably a good way to put that? Mm-hmm. And healthcare. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tip my hand a little bit and ask you, are you or have you been a frustrated practicing physician?
I'll just say that I developed much more of a passion for healthcare than I ever would have imagined. So I've never practiced, but I do enjoy looking at ways to use technology to improve people's health.
Now, you graduated from North Central High School in 1974. You received a bachelor's degree in physics from IU in 1978. Mm-hmm. A master's degree in computer science in not that far back, 1982. They had gravity back then.
Yeah.
Right? And in 1985, you received a medical degree from IU School of Medicine. Why did you want to get a medical degree? Because that's I understand, not very easy.
No, I mean, the truth is that as I was finishing up my undergrad degree, I was looking for a cool program that would let me stay in school as long as possible. And I found out about a combined degree program that would allow me to earn, the plan was a PhD in biochemistry, as well as the MD, and then hopefully go off and pursue a research career. I ended up pivoting slightly, changing from a graduate program in biochemistry over to computer science, and kind of got bitten by the bug in terms of programming.
But you completed the medical degree.
Yep.
But still, it doesn't explain, why you'd want to put yourself through that.
I really thought that I would end up doing some sort of medical research. That was the plan all the way along. I never intended to practice medicine. I never had any interest in practicing medicine. But it just seemed like there were all sorts of interesting opportunities for research around medicine, whether at the molecular level in a field like biochemistry. And as I went through the graduate program in computer science, I kept hoping that I would end up doing some medically related computer applications.
Now, you were pursuing the master's degree and the medical degree at the same time.
Yep.
Okay, that's kind of insane.
It's not easy, but this is a special program they set up for masochists. people who are willing to not have a life for a few years. But it's not quite as bad as it sounds, because generally the way I don't know if it still does this today, but at the time the way it worked was that you did your first year of medical school. Yeah, filled your brain with all sorts of facts, and then took off some variable number of years to get the graduate degree. In the case of a PhD, that's at least 5 years. Then you come back and do the second year of medical school. And so for me, it was first year of med school, then 3 years getting my graduate degree in computer science, and then coming back and doing the second year of medical school.
Okay. Now tell me if this is right. In 1983, you founded a tech company, Dealership Programming, a company that car dealerships could use to compute the finance payments for their customers.
Right.
Is that right? Okay. And you started this company while you were getting a medical degree.
Yeah. I had a buddy from undergrad, Russ Allgood, and he'd graduated and was working at his dad's car dealership, and came to me and said, could you write a program that would compute finance payments? Because in the old days, the sales guys came out onto the lot with a book that they would have to open up, tiny print, find the right page, row, and column to tell you what your payment was going to be. And they frequently messed up. He asked if I could write a program to do that on a computer, which was kind of a novel concept back at that point. And so I went to the business library, got out a business math book, learned a little bit about business math algorithms, and wrote a little program, and then kind of kept on going from there.
So in 1988, you started your second company, Software Artistry. Simply put, I think a help desk automation platform.
Right.
And then sold it to IBM for $200 million, 1997. Meanwhile, you had started your third company, which is Interactive Intelligence, which made call center software. You sold it to Genesys just recently in 2016 for $1.4 billion. But while you were doing that, and I think that this includes the period of time that you were negotiating the sale, you were in the process of receiving a master's degree in biotechnology from Johns Hopkins University, which you were awarded in 2017.
Yes.
So you're running $1 billion tech company, and you're getting a master's degree in biotechnology. Why on earth did you want a master's degree in biotechnology, and why did you think you had the time to do this?
My kids asked me the same question when I told them, although I think they said more succinctly, "Dad, you're nuts." But I had followed from afar the health sciences, the life sciences, since I'd exited, back so many years before. But I really maintained a strong intellectual interest in that field of science. I'd watched with fascination the Human Genome Project, and it just struck me that the life sciences were becoming an information science. And so I found myself, when I went home, I would be picking up a biochemistry book or a cell biology book or something, not a business book or something,
You just like have those in the bathroom while you're...
I've got them scattered all over the place. No, actually I do. And so it felt kind of haphazard, and I came across, I'm not even sure how I learned of the program at Johns Hopkins. Light bulbs went off, and I thought, I'm going to do it. Because it was really cool. It went all the way back through the basics, from biochemistry to cell biology, molecular biology, and then into more advanced topics like immunology, cancer biology, stem cell biology. So it was just a blast. I did that. It took me about 3 years. I was always double the age of the oldest person in the class.
Now, what did you think that you would do with that?
I didn't know. It was mostly out of intellectual curiosity. I started off doing some investing. So I invested in several biotech companies out in Boston, Seattle, and actually several here in Indy. So it made me feel like I was a more informed investor, that I understood the underlying science. And then when we got the offer to sell Interactive, then it just hit me. I'm going to do another company. And I'm going to do another company in the life sciences, leveraging what I think that I've learned the last few decades about the cloud, big data, machine learning, large-scale systems, security, the sorts of topics we had to deal with at Interactive Intelligence. They felt very applicable to the healthcare world.
Walk me through how you were able to organize your life to accomplish so many things.
Well, everything starts by really being passionate about something. When you love something, you'll throw every ounce of your being into it, and it just doesn't feel like work. And so that's what it was for me, as simple as that sounds. Going through the program at Johns Hopkins, I do an international trip, present at a big conference in Australia and go back to my hotel and take an exam, in advanced molecular biology. But, when you love something, it really isn't any major effort. And I just felt driven. I think one of the advantages that comes with a little age is a sense of urgency. The clock's running. And so I just felt strongly that I had something left to do.
What time would you wake up in the morning?
Oh, it depends when I got to sleep, which is my problem. I'll stay up till 3, 4 in the evening, and so when I get up in the morning is very variable.
Let's say that you went to bed at 3. When would you wake up?
7.
Because you need to be in the office.
Yeah.
Okay. So there we go. We're getting at it now.
Yeah.
4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
You're doing all this on 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Now you have a medical degree.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to be possible.
Well, it's not good, and I don't recommend it to anybody. But I've never been a very good sleeper. So I think I've skimped a little bit on that side. It'll probably come back to bite me at some point. But I'm trying to do a little bit better now and sleep more like 5, 6 hours a night.
At work, you had a job that had an incredible amount of responsibility. You had more than 2,000 employees.
Yeah.
Are you just a master at delegating, and you were just the big picture guy?
No. People complained to some extent that I had my hand in everything, and especially in product development. I was answering sales inquiries from Australia at 3 o'clock in the morning, putting together product plans, bugging the developers, working closely with sales. So I was very, very actively involved in the business. Now, we had a great team. I had a fantastic leadership team and a lot of very experienced senior managers. So it wasn't like I had to do everything, just striking a balance.
Do you have any way that you particularly organize your time and make sure you're staying on track?
Yeah, maybe not in the way you're referring to, but I guess what I've learned to do is to focus on certain things where I can make a difference. So I'm a real product guy. I always have been. And so I work very closely with the developers. I submit feature documents, whole designs, and just monitoring on a very close level what's going on with the product. In terms of organizational skills or anything, I don't claim to have any magic answers other than, the little bit of wisdom I've gained over the years, I think is encapsulated in the first couple pages of the Stephen Covey book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I read that years and years ago, and it just struck me, figure out what's important. Start every day, because it's so easy to just get consumed. As soon as you open up your email inbox, or we use Slack, all these channels of communication, it's easy to lose sight of what's important. And so I really try to start off every day, take a deep breath, take 5 minutes, write down what are the things that are important to me to get done today. Then at the end of the day, as long as I got those done, then I'm going to feel good no matter what else what other craziness is going on in the world.
Let's take a quick break from our conversation to check in with our sponsor. This is the IBJ Podcast.
The IBJ Podcast is sponsored by Krieg DeVault, a trusted and dynamic law firm representing a wide variety of local, regional, and national clients. Committed to each other and to every client, Krieg DeVault prides itself on integrity, professionalism, respect, and excellence. Financial institutions, global manufacturers, national healthcare providers, and successful organizations of all sizes and market focus rely on Krieg DeVault to create innovative and successful business solutions. Connect today at www.kriegdevault.com.
All right, we're back with the IBJ Podcast and our conversation with serial entrepreneur Don Brown. So you sell interactive intelligence for, I think, $1.4 billion in 2016. That wasn't all your money. There were other investors involved.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think you did pretty well.
Yeah.
You almost immediately donated $30 million to Indiana University School of Medicine
Yep.
to establish the Brown Center for Immunotherapy, which is dedicated to figuring out how the body's immune system can fight diseases like cancer.
Right.
So also in late 2016, you started work on a new startup, LifeOmic. The main product, tell me if I'm wrong here, is Precision Health Cloud,
Right.
Which stores and analyzes patient data, including genetic sequences,
Yep.
And uses that data to help predict potential medical risks and identify best treatments. Customers, I think, were at least originally believed to be like big medical institutions that are
Right.
doing research. So
Right.
now, we're beginning to see, your initial interest in research coming back around
Yeah.
and intersecting with all of the computing that you've done. At what point did you realize, oh, neat?
When I started the company, I was very honest with the people who joined me. When I left Interactive after the close of the transaction with Genesys, roughly 10 or so senior developers jumped ship, which got me in a little bit of trouble with Genesys. But, they wanted to come, and I said, guys, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I just want to do something cool within this space. And that was enough for them. And so the initial plan was just to jump in and learn something about the space. We thought that we'll do something around DNA sequencing. That's a really hot area. Obviously it's transformative for medicine. So we spent about $2 million and bought 2 of the latest generation sequencers from Illumina. And we're going to set up a little lab and start to develop different types of clinical tests. And we started down that road, and we realized, well, in order to do this, we've got to be able to deal with the massive amounts of data that we're capable of generating from these sequencers. And so we need to build a cloud, where we can store and analyze this stuff. And after 6 months, the cloud stuff was going great. The lab part was mired in quicksand. It was dealing with CLIA, certifications, the FDA, all that sort of stuff. And it was becoming clear to me that the sequencing, the actual generation of the data, was becoming a commodity. Even the Chinese are starting to do that at cutthroat prices. And so to try to build a business based on that just started to feel harder and harder. And so I took the kind of painful step of saying, we're going to kill that part of the business, and we're going to put all our resources into the cloud. So we did that. We started showing it around locally. And I think 2 or 3 years ago, IU, the university system, had announced a grand challenge. They had picked 2 or 3 grand challenge areas that they wanted to transform throughout the university. One of them was precision medicine or precision health. So they had launched, to great fanfare, something that they called the PHI, the Precision Health Initiative. It was targeting multiple diseases, in particular triple-negative breast cancer, multiple myeloma, and pediatric sarcoma, which are solid tumors in kids. And they were hoping to cure these diseases within 5 to 10 years. One of the things they realized that they needed in order to accomplish this, incredibly audacious goal was a computer infrastructure that was capable of holding very different types of data. In healthcare, we have the old school electronic medical records, when you saw your doctor, what medications you're on, what surgeries you've had, all that sort of stuff, as well as your kind of laboratory values. But now we've got all this fancy new omics information, up to your whole genome sequence, 3 billion letters that describe the DNA in every one of your cells. And if, God forbid, you develop cancer, then we have to do that not only for your normal tissue, but for your cancer, and then be able to compare the difference to understand what has changed and what's driving the cancer. So, medicine is faced with these huge growing data sets that are very different from what it's had to deal with historically. And what was needed was, they referred to it as a data commons, a place that they could put all this data for cancer patients and then provide the visualization and analytical tools so that researchers could then use it to figure out, what's going on. Why is it that if, we have a set of 100 women with breast cancer, 50 are going to respond well to the chemotherapy and will live long and normal lives, 50 will maybe have very bad outcomes. We know the answer's in the data. So the School of Medicine and other local groups like Regan Street saw what we had built so far, and they said, my God, that's the data commons that we need. And so quickly we struck a collaboration.
How's it been going so far? I mean, do you feel like you've made like some really important progress?
Yeah. We had there's a big review meeting, I think it was back in June in Bloomington. What used to take them a couple weeks when they got a new woman who enrolled with breast cancer, and it took them 2 weeks to just to be able to structure the data in such a way that they could start to gain an understanding of what was driving the cancer, and then use that information to come up with a treatment recommendation. Milan said that he can now, what was taking him 2 weeks before, is taking him 2 hours. And so that means that he can see more patients, he can deal with them more effectively. Each one of these disease sets has its own set of requirements, their own nuances as to what sorts of pieces of data are important and how they get structured so that these researchers can look at these diseases and divide them into subsets, to understand, as I say, why people progress differently under different treatment regimens, why some people will move to metastatic cancer more quickly than others. It's just such an incredibly complex disease. The only way we have any hope of getting our arms around it is through technology.
So in the meantime, you developed an interest in fasting.
Yes.
Okay, just briefly explain to me, when we say fasting, what does that mean to you? How do you employ that?
I've had a keen interest in life extension for a long time. As I get older, as all of us get older, I think we're all looking for ways, how can we maintain our vigor? How can we forestall disease? How can we keep going as long as we can? And being a science geek, I've kind of kept my ear to the ground regarding different sorts of discoveries through the years. I was really fascinated back in the 90s with the discovery of resveratrol, the red wine molecule that was all the craze for a while. And it really stemmed from a study that showed something that just made no sense at all. The paradoxical finding was when they starved these creatures, not starved to death, just kind of, starved them in the sense of gave them far fewer calories than what they would get normally, they lived longer and they were healthier, which just seems so counterintuitive. Why is it that, stressing an organism that way by giving it many fewer calories than it would normally receive would be beneficial? Some of the mechanisms started to be elucidated. We could understand what was going on down at the molecular level. And there's even a society of people. I remember seeing on 60 Minutes a few years ago, I can't remember what the society is called, but they make a pact that they will live on something like 60%, like 1,200 calories a day for the rest of their lives. And the early results show they don't get cancer, they don't get Alzheimer's, they don't get Parkinson's, but they look like crap.
They look like crap.
They're not very happy
like
people.
Crap?
They're emaciated.
Okay.
They can't eat. They can't have a hamburger. They can't have a beer. And so I remember after I saw that thought, I could never do it. That's what I got to do in order to live an extra 5 or 10 years. Count me out. I'm going to have my beer. I'm going to have my pizza. I'm just not going to give up all the things I love. So I knew a lot about the underlying research, or this notion of caloric restriction. But what I ran into is during my studies at Johns Hopkins, I read a paper from a guy out in University of Southern California called Walter Longo. And he had done a test, several tests, in fact, with a number of animals all the way on up, including humans, where instead of putting them on permanent caloric restriction, he just restricted their calories for brief periods. So instead of making them live 10 years on a calorie-restricted diet, he would say every Friday he would put them on either no calories or very low calories. And what he and others subsequently found was that there was more benefit, not about as much even, there was more benefit from this approach where there's this alternation between periods of eating normal and then periods of fasting. I ended up becoming fascinated by it because I thought, man, that I can do. If you tell me I can have my beer, my pizza, my biscuits and gravy, and my fried chicken, and all I've got to do is, maybe one day a week not eat or, just nibble on some carrots or something, I can do that. That's not the greatest thing in the world, but I can handle that. And so I started practicing it myself.
So you developed, through LifeOmic, the fasting tracker, kind of as a side project, essentially?
Yeah.
An app.
Yeah.
For a guy like me who's interested in intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
How many of those did you think you would have downloaded after the first year?
Our mobile manager is a lady named Annika, and she asked me that question. She said, Don, so we're going to build this thing. We really don't understand what this has to do with our primary business. I gave her the flimsy excuse that this will help test out our cloud platform because the fasting users will be, sending their data up into our cloud platform. And I said, Annika, if we could get 10,000 people using this, that would be a great load test for our cloud platform, and I would be happy.
So, how'd it go?
Within the last week or so, we've passed 750,000 users around the world.
Oh.
In less than a year. It's where you tell people those numbers, even people in the industry, who are very experienced with these sorts of apps, and their eyes just get big as silver dollars because it's unheard of.
So 750,000 downloads so far. Based in part on the success of Fasting Tracker, LifeOmic has developed a new app called Life Extend.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is the purpose of Life Extend?
Well,
what's the elevator pitch for that?
So the shortest version would be to extend your life. Right? I've spent the last several years really trying to understand why we age and what we can do about it. And a lot of it comes down to what I was talking about earlier, where many of the chronic diseases of aging that we think about, like cancer and osteoporosis and, all these other nasty diseases, they may have a very similar underpinning. What we set out to do was, once we had understood the benefits of fasting, we tried to identify what are the simple things that people can do to extend their lives and to at least forestall these chronic diseases of aging. There's lots of contradictory evidence out there, but there is good scientific evidence for certain interventions, and we try to just turn them into a game. The basic concept of the app is there are 5 pillars of health, and we try to get people to fill up each pillar each day. So each day, what you're trying to do is eat 5 fruits and vegetables, get at least 30 minutes of exercise, have at least 20 minutes of mindfulness of some sort, get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and then engage in some level of time-restricted feeding or intermittent fasting, which equates to basically just packing all of your calories into an 8 to 10 hour window during the day. And our contention is that if you do those things, those 5 things, you don't have to count calories, you don't have to change, you don't have to give up the things you eat, but if you do these things, you will improve your health and decrease your chance of developing these chronic diseases.
And has it been released yet, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we launched it with Clinical Sciences Translational Institute, CTSI. It's a collaboration among IU, Purdue, and Notre Dame, and it's part of their All In for a Health initiative where they're trying to get 100,000 Hoosiers to sign up, and what they do is essentially volunteer their personal data for research, and in return, they automatically get notified of clinical trials that they qualify for, which can be life-saving.
So here is my theory. You have found, whether you meant to or not, a model for being a family doctor, potentially for millions of people. You went to med school to be a researcher, but you have put a little Dr. Don Brown in a million people's pockets.
I think that's where things are going. Absolutely. Fundamentally, the role of the physician is going to change, and the patient is going to take more responsibility. Even today, many of us as patients are finding that we have to be our own advocates because the healthcare system is so broken. Information is so fragmented, we've got to be the coordinators, or we can very easily slip through the cracks. Then the only hope really is technology.
Well, let me check in with you in about a year.
Okay.
All right, thanks so much.
Sure, my pleasure.
My thanks again to Dr. Don Brown. IBJ's John Russell has a story this week taking an even closer look at LifeOmic and how that unexpected switch to consumer apps is changing the business. That's on the front page this week. Meanwhile, Susan Orr prepares us for the debut of the Red Line on September the 1st. Indigo is expecting big things from the rapid transit route running north-south through the middle of the city, including a 69% increase in ridership along the corridor by this time next year. And also in this issue, Sam Quinn checks in on Zionsville's Creekside Corporate Park, which required millions of dollars in investment from the town, but currently just has one occupant. You can read all about it in this week's print edition of IBJ or online at ibj.com. And remember, for full and unfettered access to all of IBJ's award-winning business content, just hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for making time this week for the IBJ podcast, which is edited by Leslie Weidenbenner. I'm Mason King, and we'll be back again next week.